you assimilate all that information to get to the point where you're ready to express your judgment about this is a buy, this is a sell, with certain position size?
We use a phrase here. We say it should be obvious and compelling to all. So meaning that our hurdle rate is, so we're not interested in good ideas. Like, hey, I think if this, and this happens, we can make 15%. It's like, well, that's good. But, if we're long-term investors, and so we're looking for things that we think can double or more in 3 years or less. Okay, so that IRR, the internal rate of return, okay, I need more than 15%. And when you start saying, well, I need 20, 25%, it's like, okay, what do you see that is different than what anyone else sees, or that, what are you putting in your model, and is that realistic? And by the time the research is done, our investment committees, and, you have to understand also the way we work, the people I work with, my partners, we've been together for a very long period of time. And so we create a culture where we can openly debate, and, look, guys get angry sometimes, and, like it's like any family. But we've got really talented people who work here, and we argue about it, and we say, but by the time somebody expresses something, and everyone's, well, did you think of this? And what about that? And what research did you do on this piece? By the time it's done, most of the people in the room are kind of nodding their head going, yeah, that sounds pretty good. I'd like to buy some of that too. And that's usually what we come to. And then in terms of sizing, the second part of your question, so, I want to make my living on my hit rate. There's, again, as I said earlier, there's many paths to the waterfall. Different people do different things. Some people love having really concentrated portfolios. I'm going to own 5 stocks. I'm like, well, good for you, and that works when it works. But when it doesn't work, I don't want my brain melting down. Other people are like, I want to own 50 or 75 or 100 stocks. I'm like, well, how much do you really know about 100 stocks, or how much deep work are you doing on 100 stocks? So you say, well, we should have 2 to 4% positions. And why we don't really outsize massively anything. A big position for us might be 5%. Why? Because I want to make my money on my hit rate. To me, a quality of return, I know a lot of people talk about slugging and knowing when to take the really big bet. But sometimes you're wrong. And sometimes it's not that you're wrong on the fundamentals. Sometimes the stock just goes in the opposite direction. I could give you lots of examples of that, where we were right over time, but man, were we wrong in the short term. If we just get our hit rate right, things will take care of themselves. So what dictates whether something's 2, 3, 4%, or maybe in a blue moon 5%, is one, obviously the liquidity of the stock. 2, what do we think the risk reward is? Meaning, what do we think the upside is versus the downside? So the stock's at 20 and we think it can go to 40. And if we're wrong, we think it goes to 18, or we think it goes to 2, right? So that ratio. And then lastly, what do we think we know relative to everybody else? What independent work have we done that we think gives us an edge?